How we doing, everybody? UFC Thoughts here, and today I'm going to be going over UFC Vegas 95, Tybura vs. Spivac 2 on August 10th, 2024. Let's get right into it with the first fight of 10. We start with Stephanie Luciano versus Talita Alencar 2. I'm going to go with Stephanie Luciano, probably by split decision. When I'm looking at this fight, and I rewatched their first fight, Talita Alencar had... The only reason it was a draw was because she had success with the grappling in the first 2 rounds, and then she gassed out in the third and kind of just fumbled over herself. I think what the difference in this fight is, again, going to be the cardio. Stephanie Luciano has gone 5 rounds before. She has great cardio. She has great pressure. The only reason Yan Dos Santos wasn't able to definitively get a win, even though I personally believe, and I know it's a bit hypocritical because I did pick Yan, I thought Yan won when her and Talita fought. I thought she won rounds 1 and 3. I just think Talita, she's very small for strawweight. She's a very small individual, and I understand she's beat Yan Dos Santos and she went to a draw with Stephanie Luciano, but the difference is that Yan Dos Santos isn't putting a pressure cooker-esque performance like a Stephanie Luciano was. She was kind of just wading in and out of the box and just waiting in and out of the pocket, rather, and just swinging wild overhand. Stephanie Luciano is a bit more composure. She's very calm, and I think her straights, Talita Alencar doesn't really move her head off the center line. She just throws. She drops her hands when she throws her punches. Her takedowns, she's a little slow. She gasses out pretty quick, and I think if Stephanie Luciano is able to walk her down, I imagine Stephanie Luciano is going to go into this fight with a killer's mentality. After the Contender Series fight where she lost just via the grappling. She's in Brazil, so I imagine that's mostly what she's working with. Who does she work with? What gym does she? Gordon? Alright, she's not with the most crazy gym, but she's in Brazil, so I imagine she's just training grappling at this point. Just trying to work on everything. I think Talita's going to have the experience advantage. I imagine Talita's going to win the first round. I think the second round's going to be very close, and then the third's just going to be all Stephanie Luciano. I imagine it's just going to be mostly like the first fight, but I think Stephanie Luciano is going to be able to defend takedowns more and keep it standing more and be able to land more. So, yeah, Stephanie Luciano split decision, but honestly, who fucking knows? We move to Youssef Zalal versus Jarno Errens. I'm going to go with Youssef Zalal. I think he might be able to sub Jarno Errens. I think he might be able to submit Jarno. When I'm looking at this fight, I just think Youssef Zalal is going to be able to implement a game plan similar to the one that he worked in the Billy Quarantillo fight. Jarno Errens, most of his success happens on the front foot, or he likes to counter in the pocket as well. But Jarno Errens is a really unpredictable, kind of all over the place, really fancy footwork. He's kind of bouncing all over the place and then he'll rush in. Youssef Zalal is well-mannered. I don't know how that works in fighting, but he's kind of just standing back. He'll circle around, he'll fucking counter you. I really liked that Billy Quarantillo fight for Youssef Zalal, and that's a performance that I went into the fight doubting him. And I also doubted Jarno Errens going into his last performance, but I rate a Billy Quarantillo finishing Billy Quarantillo over, going to a decision with Stephen Nguyen. But Stephen Nguyen is still pretty good. I don't like the takedown defense of Jarno Errens. It's only like a 29%. Youssef Zalal has been able to grapple with dudes like in Ilia Topuria as well. He also subbed Billy Quarantillo, like I was saying. Youssef Zalal looks better and better each performance. He's a pretty decently sized guy for the division. His striking looked pretty fucking crisp in his last fight with Billy. He really kind of tuned him up. He tuned up Billy. And one thing I really like about Youssef Zalal is one of his main attributes is his calf kicks. And Jarno Errens, for some reason, has very weird calves. In his last fight with Stephen Nguyen, the second leg kick that Stephen Nguyen landed seemed to jar Jarno Errens. So I think Youssef Zalal is going to be able to add that to his toolkit. Not add, but utilize it and be able to brutalize the leg of Jarno Errens, kind of remove that fancy footwork of Jarno, and be able to take him down easier. Once Youssef Zalal gets going, once he's in that flow state, he's kind of hard to stop. So yeah, I think Youssef Zalal is just going to be the better man on the night. Very similar records. identical records, actually. I think Youssef Zalal should be able to stop Jarno Errens. I'll go with rear naked choke again. I think he'll be able to get the back of Jarno Errens. He's kind of spurtsy. He kind of does weird shit. He also has a weird shin, Jarno. So I imagine that a knee that Youssef Zalal landed on Billy Quarantillo should be able to put down Jarno Errens a little bit. Because Jarno also does tend to duck quite a bit. So, yeah. There we go. We move to Jhonata Diniz versus Karl Williams. Karl Williams co-main evented his last fight. Holy shit, this card is... Alright, I'm going to go with Karl Williams. This is a tricky one. I'm going to trust in Karl Williams in this fight. Because in Jhonata's last performance, Austin Lane was able to take him down and control him for almost the entirety of the first round. And Austin Lane is nowhere near as good as Karl Williams. That is purely my thought process. And also, Austin Lane is kind of stupid. He stands up longer than he should have. I know he started to shoot, and Jhonata started to defend the takedowns, but Austin Lane does not have the takedown prowess of a Karl Williams. But I will say this. Karl Williams is also dumb for a heavyweight. He was only standing with Justin Tafa unless Justin rocked him and then he'd go for the takedown. I want Karl just to take him down. That's how I think this fight should go. Karl should take him down most likely with ease. Jhonata Diniz will have the stand-up advantage. Power-wise, speed-wise, I would still lean towards Karl Williams. Karl Williams is a pretty lean 265er. He's not even 265. I think Karl Williams is 230 when he steps on the scales. Pretty small, almost Jailton Almeida-esque, but Karl Williams is not fucking Jailton Almeida. But he is better than these unranked heavyweights. I will give him that. He's very speedy. Speedy Gonzalez. He's got a ton of speed. Not a ton of speed, but he's pretty dang fast for a heavyweight, especially a wrestler. His takedowns are pretty aggressive. He has good control time. He's able to hold people down. Jhonata Diniz slows down excessively when held down. He will slow down so bad that I think Karl Williams should be able to get takedowns. If a Justin Tafa who just rocked you can't get you out of there, I don't think Jhonata Diniz is going to be able to do anything. Because, listen, Jhonata Diniz is going to get a ton of hype. And here's the thing. I want him to win this fight. This is what's best for the division is if Jhonata Diniz knocks out Karl Williams. Because we have a guy to look out for in Jhonata Diniz. But I just don't see that happening. So, yeah. I just think that Karl Williams is going to be the better mixed martial artist come Saturday. Yeah, I don't know. That's it. We move to the featured prelim. Karol Rosa versus Pannie Kianzad. I'm going to go with Karol Rosa by split decision. I think it's going to be a close fight on the feet. I think Pannie Kianzad's boxing's pretty decent, but I think Karol Rosa's kind of a dog. I think she's just got that dog in her. Her last fight with Irene Aldana really showed that. And I think Pannie Kianzad's forward pressure can be limited if Karol Rosa is able to whip at them legs. I also think Karol Rosa has some power in her hands. And I think if she really wants the path of least resistance, she could just grapple with Pannie Kianzad, which she probably won't. But that could also work. I find it hard to pick Pannie Kianzad in a fight like this. After Karol Rosa's last 3 fights, she had a very close fight with Norma Dumont. She had a very close fight with Irene Aldana, and she has a win over Yana Santos. A split win at that, but so yeah, I don't know. This fight's kind of weird to predict because Pannie Kianzad could just do some bullshit and win. Maybe Karol Rosa doesn't go for takedowns. She ends up getting clipped. Blah, 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 that. Blah, 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 that. I don't know. I think it's going to be close on damage because Pannie Kianzad's straight punches are pretty decent. But I just like Karol Rosa's game plans that she builds up. And I think she's going to have a good game plan against Pannie Kianzad. So, yeah. Whatever. We move to the start of the main card. Toshiomi Kazama versus Charalampos Grigoriou. I'm going to go with Charalampos Grigoriou by first round KO. I can't see a fucking world where Toshiomi wins this fight. Oh, man. This is a funny one. I'm super, like, because I just rewatched Toshiomi Kazama versus fucking Garrett Armfield, and holy shit, dude. His striking is dog shit. His striking is really fucking bad. I get he's like the wrestler, grappler type that comes out of Road to UFC, because he has like 5 submission wins of his 10 wins. His striking is very bad. Not very bad. It's just very, you can tell he needs to work on it. In the politest way is what I would call it. He's very slow to the gun. He's very reactionary, which I do not like. He will rush in with kicks to the body, getting hit a bunch. He's been KO'd 3 times in his career. He's only 27. Yeah. You know, the way that he wins this fight is being able to grapple with Charalampos, and Charalampos has 100% takedown defense in the UFC. Chad and Helliger couldn't take him down. In fact, Charalampos was taking down, I just said his name, Chad and Helliger. And also, Charalampos trains at that gym with Aljo Marab and Matt Frivola. Those guys, those fucking monsters. So I imagine that his takedowns and his grappling is pretty fucking well-rounded. I think Charalampos has a lot of power in his hands, and I can't see a world where Toshiomi Kazama wins this fight, given his track record of being KO'd in his last 2 fights. His striking is very subpar. He leaves a lot of openings. He rushes in a lot. Charalampos is a little low output, which I do not like, and he did gas out in his last fight, but I don't think he will go to the second round with a guy like Toshiomi, who leaves his chin in the air so much, rushes in, blah, 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 that, blah, 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 that. You get the point. So, Charalampos, first round KO, lock it in. We move to Yana Santos versus Chelsea Chandler. I'm going to go with Chelsea Chandler by unanimous decision. I don't know what to tell you guys. I think Yana will have a very distinct advantage on the feet. I think Yana is very scrappy on the feet. I like her 1s and 2s. She also entertains the clinch a bunch, which is why I'm picking Chelsea Chandler. I think if she entertains the clinch as much as she usually does, I think that's just going to play into Chelsea Chandler's game. She's going to get taken down, probably held down, and Chelsea Chandler also looks like Shane Gillis. So, I don't know. Man, I don't fucking know. So, I'll go with Chelsea Chandler. I think that she's just going to be better at MMA. I also think Chelsea Chandler's stand-up is improving. Her straight left was working against Josiane Nunes, who I do rate as a WMMA fighter. I think Josiane Nunes is sneaky good for some reason, and Chelsea Chandler was able to beat her, even though it was a close fight. Yana Santos hasn't sniffed victory since 2021. I think she's fiending for a win. She's going to make a bunch of mistakes. I also think Yana Santos isn't fully committed to the lifestyle of an MMA fighter, because I'm pretty sure her and Tiago have like 2 kids. So she's probably 1 foot in, 1 foot out. She's probably doing this just for some money. I just think that Chelsea Chandler is more hungry in the sport, apparent enough by the body. That was a really bad joke. But yeah, I think Chelsea Chandler, I think her grappling, her mixing in the grappling, her being able to shift a straight left down the pipe, and Yana Santos, who doesn't really move her head, I think it's just going to play into her game. I think Chelsea Chandler is going to have a distinct size advantage over Yana Santos, even though they are the same height. Yana Santos is kind of a lean 5'8". Chelsea Chandler, pretty big for the division. I think she's just going to outweigh Yana Santos, out-big her, which I think is very distinct at women's bantamweight between girls who just don't want to cut weight and girls who have to cut to bantamweight because they can't make 125. So, yeah, I think it's going to be the distinct difference in this fight. We move to Chris Gutierrez versus Quang Lee. I'm going to go with Chris Gutierrez by either really late finish, like 3rd round TKO, or decision. I think Quang Lee, he's a prospect that you look at the record, 8-0, coming out of LFA, a talent-rich organization that brings in a load of talent to the UFC, and you're like, oh my god, this guy is pretty fucking good. But then you look at the opponents he's faced. He's facing very bottom-of-the-barrel LFA competition. Guys with like 6-4 records, 6-3 records, guys with negative records. And I just think this is way too short notice, first of all. This is like a week's notice for Quang Lee. And also, this is like way too big of a jump up in competition with a guy like Chris Gutierrez, who's fought guys like Frankie Edgar, Alatong Lee, Song Yidong, and Pedro Munoz. A guy who's very smart. And I also think that Chris Gutierrez, his IQ, his feinting game is going to cause a lot of problems for Quang Lee. I think Chris Gutierrez's leg kicks are going to be problems for Quang Lee because Quang Lee does tend to not check leg kicks. He gets off-kiltered by them in his last fight with the, what was his name? Was it Tial Tong? Tial, Tial, and then Tang or Tong, Thang. I don't know how to actually pronounce it. But one leg kick set this dude across the fucking octagon. And I do not like that against a rapid kicker like Chris Gutierrez, who his main priority of success is through his kicking game. I also think Chris Gutierrez, his IQ is pretty high, even though Chris Gutierrez isn't highly revered as a bantamweight prospect anymore, at least. His IQ is pretty standard and pretty high, I'd say. So I think Chris Gutierrez is just going to be too much for a guy like Quang Lee this early in his career. And, yeah. I just think Quang Lee isn't ready. So I'll go Chris Gutierrez, late finish or unanimous decision. Lock it in. We move to the featured fight. Danny Barlow versus Nikolay Veretennikov. I'm going to go with Danny Barlow by second round KO. This is a very interesting fight. If Nikolay had a little bit longer to prepare, besides, I think it's like a week and a half, I would be more interested. But since Nikolay is coming in on such short notice, it is kind of hard to pick him against a guy like Danny Barlow, who we've seen put away a guy like Josh Quinlan, beat him to a fucking pulp in their fight. Danny Barlow just hits very hard, and I think that Nikolay, I think the speed advantage is going to be very distinct in this matchup from Danny, because Danny, his frame, his speed, it's kind of otherworldly when you're watching welterweight because he's so big and so fast for the division. I mean, that's been a big critique of Nikolay in his entire career, was his speed. Also, Nikolay doesn't like conventionally use his hands a whole bunch early on. He's very teep heavy, kind of setting up traps, feinting his lead hand. And I think I watched one of his performances and he got tagged with a left straight a couple of times and he kind of was like, what are you doing? I don't like that. I don't like that at all. If you're getting tagged by left straights by Danny Barlow, you're gonna have a bad time. And I think Danny Barlow, his head movement, Jesus, I think his head movement's also very distinct. And Nikolay has his power himself. He has what is it, 9 KOs? He's very powerful himself. His left hook is very dangerous. He knows how to land on the temple of people. But Danny Barlow's head movement is pretty good. He does leave his chin in the air at times, but I think Danny Barlow is good enough to get past a test short notice against a guy like Nikolay Veretennikov. I think it will be close early on, but I think Danny Barlow is going to start landing, getting a flow state, starting throwing kicks to the body, throwing kicks to the head, throwing leg kicks even. I think Danny Barlow should win this pretty fairly, I'll say. We move to the co-main event of the evening, Damon Jackson versus Chepe Mariscal. I'm going to go with Chepe Mariscal. Damon Jackson, again, he's like a Jared Gordon-esque fighter to me. I don't think he's good, but he's kind of good. Chepe Mariscal, I like his track record so far in the UFC. Morgan Sherrier, or Sherrier, however you pronounce it, I forget. Trevor Peake, Jack Jenkins. Of course, Jack Jenkins, that fight has the injury asterisks, or like, he was very close fight. Chepe was being the dog, and I think that's what's going to win him this fight, is being able to be a dog. And in a fisticuffs pocket exchange battle with a guy like Damon Jackson, both of these guys' chins are a little suspect. A lot of people are forgetting, because you got to go back all the way to 2020 and beyond. Chepe's been KO'd 3 times in his career. All the great competition, like Gregor Gillespie, he got KO'd. Joe Anderson Brito KO'd him in under 50 seconds. I think Steve Garcia was the other one. But he hasn't been KO'd in a while. He hasn't lost in a while, since 2020. Damon Jackson, how many times? He's been KO'd, 4? 4 times. Yeah. I just think that Chepe Mariscal is able to go through damage, and I also think that the people he's fought, Trevor Peek, Jack Jenkins, and a guy like Morgan Charriere, are more dynamic strikers and more dangerous on the feet than a guy like Damon Jackson. So, I know Damon Jackson's going to have the size advantage, and I think that might help him, but also he took this on short notice, so you know how I feel about short notice guys. I think Damon Jackson is going to make this competitive, even though it really shouldn't be that competitive if I'm being honest. But I don't see Damon winning against a guy like Chepe Mariscal. I just don't see it. I don't see him being able to outdog Chepe Mariscal. I don't see him being able to consistently outpace a guy like Chepe Mariscal, who does have good cardio as well. Not good cardio, but he's got decent enough cardio. So, oh shit, I dropped my mic. Fucking, this video is going great. So I'll go Chepe Mariscal. I'll go first or second round TKO. You never know with Damon Jackson anymore. The new hairline really started a new thing. So, but yeah, I think Chepe Mariscal, I like his hooks in the pocket. I think Damon Jackson, if he knows what's good for him, he's going to try and grapple with Chepe Mariscal. But knowing Damon Jackson, he isn't, because he is kind of stupid. He is kind of slow. So I'll go Chepe Mariscal, second round TKO, lock it in. We move to Marcin Tybura versus Sergey Spivac 2. Ah, man, what a main event we got, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to go with Sergey Spivac in this one. Rewatching their first fight, a lot of the reasoning why Marcin Tybura beat Sergey Spivac was mostly due to the fact that Marcin at the time had superior grappling to Sergey Spivac. Also, Sergey Spivac was very young in his career. He was also very small for the heavyweight division. I think he weighed, 234 when they fought? He was under 240, from what I remember. He was like 235, 234, 233, somewhere in that range. He was very lean. Sergey's built into a heavyweight frame. He weighs, 260 now? Let me check this. 260? Yeah, 260. Marcin stayed the same. I think Sergey's better on the feet. I think he has superior striking skills. I like Sergey Spivac's 1s and 2s. This is like the first time in a while that Sergey Spivac is not fighting a super dynamic, powerful striker. His last couple of opponents, Cyril Gane, Derek Lewis, Augusto Sakai, Greg Hardy, Tom Aspinall. He also beat Alexei Olenek. I'm pretty sure Marcin Tybura also did beat Alexei Olenek. Let me check this out. Did he not? I would have thought he would have. He did not. He probably would have. But Sergey Spivac, I think he's just going to be better than Marcin Tybura. Marcin Tybura is also old. He's 38. At heavyweight, I know this is a division where that doesn't matter. I know he has more experience than Sergey Spivac. But Sergey Spivac, I feel Marcin Tybura would crumble if he ever fought Cyril Gane. I think he would have been TKO'd way earlier than Sergey Spivac did. And that's also a fight where Sergey Spivac kind of he kind of crumbled in that fight. I think he felt a lot of the pressure. I think against Marcin Tybura in the Apex, no fans, no crowd against him, you know what I mean? I think he's going to do pretty fine. And Marcin Tybura, I don't see him ragdolling Sergey Spivac. Sergey Spivac, since that fight, he has like a 70% takedown defense. He's got 64 takedown accuracy of his own. I just think that besides Marcin Tybura's big ol' kicks that he has and his very loopy hooks, I don't think he has a lot to offer Sergey Spivac. We saw in the Tai Tuivasa fight that Marcin Tybura's striking is starting to decline. I think Sergey Spivac's going to be able to put some combos together, be able to lay out Marcin Tybura. I think he might be able to finish Marcin Tybura. I think Sergey Spivac has, not underrated, because I do think his striking is still a bit shit, but he has, personally in my belief, better boxing than Marcin Tybura. And we've seen that Marcin Tybura, as of recently, can't get really anything going on the stand-up. He kind of has to rely on the takedowns against like Tai Tuivasa, Blagoy Ivanov, and Alexander Romanov. You know what I mean? When he goes up against guys who are better strikers than him, he kind of has to resort to grappling. And this time, Sergey Spivac has increased his grappling and his size to a significant amount. So I think Sergey Spivac, I pray this doesn't go to decision because I do not feel like watching these two fight for 25 minutes. So I'll go Sergey Spivac. I think he'll be able to TKO Marcin Tybura in the first 2 rounds. Yeah, I'm UFC Thoughts. These have been my picks and breakdown for every fight on UFC Vegas 95, Tybura vs. Spivac 2 on August 10th, 2024. My confident picks reside with Youssef Zalal, Chris Gutierrez, and Denny Barlow. My pre-card rating is a 2 out of 10. This card is fucking stinky poo-poo diarrhea bullshit, and I can't wait for this week to be over, because next week we have UFC 305, which I cannot wait to see. So, yeah, that's all I have to say about this card. Can't wait for it to be over. Hopefully this card's better than what I think it's going to be. It probably will, because these cards, for some reason, always have cool finishes, even though the name value on it is shit. So, yeah, I'll see you guys for the recap. Peace.